Drunk off their love for money, Exxon lied for 33 years. Greg Palast exposes them next. Like, subscribe, ding the bell, and share with your friends and family.
Guns to ExxonMobil. it's not that giant a leap. It's at least in terms of destructive. Well, guns kill people, but so do oil spills. Anyhow, this is the 33 years ago today, the Exxon Valdez disaster happened. The myth that I think most of us believe, the story that was told, in fact, a movie was made out of it, is that the captain of the ship was a drunk and therefore it ran aground and, quack, quack, quack. But there's a much deeper story here. And one of the guys who was on that story at the time, 33 years ago, doing the research, publishing articles about it, is the author of How Trump Stole 20, and previously Vulture's Picnic, which features the full Exxon Valdez story. It's one of Greg Palast's absolutely best books. The investigative journalist, Greg Palast himself, gregpalast.com, Greg_Palast at Twitter. Greg, welcome back to the program. Tell us the true story of the Exxon Valdez.
Yeah, let me declare that I was the chief investigator for the people that owned the shoreline, the Chugach natives of Alaska. I lived up with the natives up there for a few years doing the investigation. Okay, here's the story. There's this whole myth that there's a drunken skipper, like someone at the wheel of a car who's drunk and smashes into a rock. No, he was below deck sleeping it off. That's not how that happened. You had the third mate, who anyone could have taken that ship through there because they had the very first GPS system in the world on that ship. It was very easy to sail through, not hit a rock. There's a big giant light on Bly Reef. They should have missed it, but believe it or not, Exxon had the radar turned off. I kid you not. The radar was turned off. Why? Because it was broken. It was too expensive to fix. It's not like your $200 Garmin. We're talking a $2 million piece of equipment, which took a lot of people millions of dollars of training. They turned off the radar, Tom. The other thing is that it hit at Bly Reef at Tetitlik Village. You have to understand the Chugach natives, my clients, who I was investigating for, they were standing on the beach watching this ship come towards them and smashed into the rocks. And here's the tragedy. It destroyed their village. It destroyed the 1,200 miles of coastline. It destroyed their lives. But they, understand, they had cut a deal. The Chugach natives had given Exxon and BP the Port of Valdez, $1 billion property, and they did it for $1. But they said, what we care about is not your money. We want these waters to be clean and safe. You put us in charge of the safety. Number one, you must have state-of-the-art radar, and they got Exxon to agree to it. And, of course, they turned off the radar. We did mean to say, hey, listen, you got to keep the radar turned on. And the second is that you have to have safety equipment in case of an oil spill. That is, at Bly Reef, it's very easy, by the way, to clean up an oil spill, Tommy. It's really simple. You put rubber around it, and then you get a containment ship, and you suck it out. So you put on the rubber, you suck it out, and you're done. You would have never heard of the Exxon Valdez. Exxon lied, and BP lied, and said that there was spill equipment right there at Bly Reef, right where the ship hit. But it was a complete lie. They signed documents. It was a fraud. And even worse, they were part of the deal for getting Valdez is they had hired the natives who were expert in being able to get into that icy water with special suits on to surround a ship where there's a spill. Just before the tanker hit, they'd fired the natives to save money. They never put out the equipment. They fired the natives. They were prepared and trained to surround a stricken vessel, stop the oil from flowing out, pump it out. You'd have never heard of the Exxon Valdez except that Exxon and its partner, British Petroleum, lied and lied and lied. And that's why we still know the name Exxon Valdez 33 years later.
Well, but I think we also know the name of, what was it, Joseph, what was his last name?
Joe Hazelwood. Look, you shouldn't be drunk.
That's right. I knew there was a wood.
If you're a captain, you shouldn't be drunk. But it's not. He wasn't driving the car. He wasn't driving the vessel.
Right.
The problem was.
Right. Yeah, he was in the back seat.
That he was below decks sleeping it off. So was the first and second mate. The third mate, he wasn't exactly expert. but they had the radar. And any 12-year-old who's played a video game would know how to move that ship by following the GPS. That's all you have to do is a big, giant, wide channel.
But if you've got no GPS, you've got a problem.
Yeah. And by the way, on top of everything else, while ExxonMobil has run big ads talking about, they actually ran giant full-page ads for several years about their safe vessels because they have double hulls. Well, they didn't. The Exxon Valdez had a single hull, and because Exxon and BP had successfully fought congressional demands to have every tanker out of Valdez have a double hull, they beat that and said it wasn't necessary. When the tanker hit, if it had hit the reef and had the double hull, they wouldn't have lost, 12 ounces of oil, let alone, we don't know how many gallons, but about 42 million gallons of oil.
Wow. So Greg, we have about 2.5 minutes here left. What was the consequence of this to Exxon other than bad publicity, which they seem to have been able to greenwash away? And what happened to your clients, the Native Americans there?
Well, so I fought Exxon for years on their behalf with the legal team, and we uncovered this massive fraud. And they said if you make the fraud public, if you use the F word, fraud, we will never give you a penny. So they gave the natives a few shekels. What they did was they basically bought the native land. Why? Because they actually want to use it as for oil work staging. You can still go to the Chugach land, like the Sleepy Bay. You stick your hand in the gravel at the beach at Sleepy Bay. This is 33 years later. I've been there, by the way. I go about every 10 years. Stick your hand in the gravel, and it'll come up with goo and smell like a gas station. This fantasy that nature just is an endless toilet which flushes itself clean is nonsense. So they still got the hydrocarbon. It killed their seals that made their sardines that they live off of. I was at the Chiniga village. They lived 100% off the land. Everything was poisoned. It destroyed their way of life, and a judge ruled that the native way of life, living off the land, which they have lived off for 3,000 years, a judge ruled. He said, "Look, your native life is just a lifestyle choice. You could always go to a supermarket, which is 100 miles away by air. So they got nothing for the destruction of their way of life. It destroyed those villages. It was horrendous, and it's still there. And anyone, Exxon is still putting out the lie that nature cleans itself. It's just a toilet you can keep flushing. Because who goes up there, Tom? This is really remote. These are the last.
Is any of this still being litigated, Greg?
No, it took. By the way, Exxon told me when I try to cut a deal with them and say, buddy, we can wait you out 20 years in a courtroom. And I thought, well, that's an exaggeration. No, it was 20 years before the U.S. Supreme Court ruled and cut out 90% of the jury and court judgment against Exxon. 90% of the court judgment. This is what ended, by the way. It was the case that virtually ended punitive damages in America. So I don't think people understand what happens with these oil spills. It is permanent destruction, and you're finished. These guys lie. Oil industry floats on lies.